Sounds good.
All right. Can you start by introducing yourself and just telling me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Josie Siler. I am from Wisconsin, where it is lovely out right now, though it's going to get very cold way too soon. I'm not a fan of cold, which is funny that I live here, but I love the four seasons. I love color. I love bright things and happy things. I'm all about looking for joy in my journey. So, part of my history is I live with chronic illness. So, ever since I was a child, I have had weird health things my whole life. And it hasn't been easy. It's been really hard. And so that ties back into why I wrote this book and what the book is about. But as far as just who I am, I love Jesus, and I wouldn't be here today. I can say that 100% certainty without him. I should have been dead at least 3 times that I can count that he has spared my life. And I feel like that's just, it's for a reason. He's not done with me yet. And even though sometimes I feel inferior because I have chronic illness, like I can't do everything that everybody else can do, I know that God still has a plan for me. And I know that there's joy in that journey. And that's what I want to share with others. I want to share that even in the hard times, joy is there because Jesus is there. And if I can help people discover that for their own journey, then that makes mine totally worth it.
Great. That sounds amazing. I love all of that. And that leads right into my next question, which is, can you tell me about your upcoming book for
Yes.
Endgame?
It is my first published solo book, and it is a picture book called Howie's Broken Hee Haw. And it's about a donkey who obviously has a broken hee haw. And it is the donkey that Jesus chooses to ride into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. And as I was preparing for this interview and thinking about it, I don't know why this hasn't really dawned on me before, but Howie is my story. It's the story of, I think that's why it came so easily to me. It's about this donkey, and he has a broken hee haw, and it makes him so mad. He just hates that he's different from the other donkeys, that he can't hee haw like the other donkeys do. And it makes him mad. It makes him sad. He feels ashamed that he's different. And yet God chooses him. Jesus chooses him to ride into Jerusalem. And he thinks, why me? You could have picked any donkey, and there's so many donkeys better than me. And Jesus says, no, I choose you. And that's the same as what he has done for me. I had those same feelings that Howie has. And I know there's so many kids who have those same feelings too, that they're a little bit different than other kids and they feel inferior. Maybe they're ashamed about something about them, but that's what God can use for his glory. And I want to share through this book and through my own life that Jesus made kids and adults on purpose and for a purpose, that they have great value because Jesus made them, and that's enough. And he loves them, and he can use them just the way they are. And maybe even not in spite of who they are, in spite of this thing they don't like about themselves, but maybe because of it, that he made them that way for a specific reason to bring him glory in a specific way. And if kids can learn that at a younger age than I learned that, then that would be awesome.
I love that, on purpose and for a purpose.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it. Cool. Well, that'll go right into this next question, which was just kind of, what is the primary inspiration for this book? And you kind of have touched on this, but like, where did that idea start? How did you kind of come up with this?
So in my years of chronic illness, I struggle with insomnia off and on. And I will have times where I just lay there at night and I can't sleep for anything. And it was one such night that God dropped the idea of Howie into my head. And honestly, I don't know where it came from. I was just laying there, and all of a sudden I had the whole book in my head. And so I rolled over and I grabbed my cell phone and I just started writing notes on my cell phone. And I wrote literally probably the first quarter of the book that first night.
Wow.
And then the next night, I again couldn't sleep. And so I wrote more of the book. And that was the first half of the book. And I looked back a little while ago, and the book has been through, I finished it, it's been through many edits, but that first section that I wrote in the wee hours of the night was hardly touched. It's almost word for word what I wrote in the middle of the night. And
That's
so
very funny. It survived the editing process.
yes, I know, right? I feel like God just really dropped this story in my head so that I could, one, process my own emotions of chronic illness and that experience, but also so that I can help other people do the same, whether it's an illness or whatever it is that they're facing that they struggle with. Adults, children. I had one adult read my book for endorsement, and she wrote back to me and she said, Josie, this book, she goes, I was in tears. I was just bawling because this is the book that I needed when I was a kid and I was going through all of this stuff. And so it's my prayer that not only will children be encouraged and learn these important lessons, but that adults will maybe have some healing from their past too.
Great. I love when you're writing a children's book, how you're kind of reaching two audiences. I spoke with
Yes.
another author about that idea, and it's just
Yes.
interesting to think about because you think kids' book, kids is in the name.
Yeah.
Of course it's for kids, but it's for the parents too.
It
And
is. It is.
I love a
I
book
just
that
read, I think it
reaches
was a C.S. Lewis quote that I'm going to get it totally wrong because I just
that.
briefly read it, but something along the lines of if an adult doesn't like a book for children, then the children won't like it either, and it's not worth writing. That, you know, it has to be for both audiences in a sense. He said it so much better than me, though.
Well, C.S. Lewis had a way with words.
He did.
It's always worth saying his words.
Yes.
So again, this is something you did kind of touch on, but what is kind of the purpose or the goal with this book?
Yeah, my goal is just to help kids understand how much God loves them, and that no matter what they're going through, no matter what hardships they're facing, that they have value. And it's not just because of the things that they can do or because they're a good boy or a good girl, but it's because God made them, and that in and of itself gives them great value. It gives them purpose. God made each of us unique. And so I think that's what I want kids to understand, is that it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. Jesus cares. He's with you. He loves you, and he will help you through it. And he will choose you for something special because he chooses all of us.
Cool. I love that. So you did talk a little bit about your writing process for this book, and this is your first book, yes?
Yes.
So how was kind
Not
of
my first one written, but my first one
Yes.
published. Yes.
Yes. Can you just talk about how, in general, the writing process was after kind of that initial inspiration? What did it look like?
Yeah. So after I finished the book, I was going through a challenge with the Series Writer Club online, and one of the challenges was to share about our current work in progress. And so I had shared some about this book, and I've always heard that if you tell someone a whole bunch of ideas, like book ideas, themes, things like that, and then maybe a couple weeks later go back and ask them, remember when I was telling you those book ideas? Are there any of them that you're still thinking about, or did any of them kind of stick? And if there's something that they're like, oh yeah, I can't get this one out of my mind, that's the one you should write. And so I have this in the back of my mind, and so many people from that group, weeks, months later, how's your donkey book coming? I can't stop thinking about that, you know, and people would on the regular ask me about that, and friends that I had talked to about it. And so I knew that God was doing something with this book because it was an idea that resonated with other people. And so the process for me was just one, to first of all finish the book. I went through a couple edits. Then I hired Michelle Medlock Adams to read it for me and to critique it and to give me some ideas and some feedback, which she did, and that was wonderful. And then I also entered, part of the Blue Ridge Mountain Christian Writers Conference, you can do a paid manuscript critique. And so I did that last November. I don't know, I've lost all track of time. Maybe it was 2 Novembers ago. But whichever year they had to push it back because of COVID. But I had someone critique it then, and critiques are so vital, right? Because it was only in this, I don't know, I had had several people look at it, and it was only in this critique where, see, Howie used to be Hallie. It was a girl donkey. And she met the gal who was critiquing this book. She's like, it's a colt. So a colt is a boy donkey. I was like, I knew that. I live in Wisconsin. I know this about animals, right? And for some reason, I never saw it. Nobody else ever saw it. And so that got fixed, and Hallie became Howie. And so that was kind of my process. I went through several critiques, and I got several endorsers for the book ahead of time that I could put in my book proposal, because I'm still building my platform and my numbers are still on the small side. And so I got some people who have bigger platform numbers, a wider audience, a bigger audience than I do, to endorse my book ahead of time so I could put that in my book proposal. And that was really helpful. And one of those endorsers was Victoria Durstock, who owns Endgame Press. And when she started her publishing company, she told me, I want this book. And that's how it happened. And it was amazing and unexpected and wonderful.
It's always funny to see how the process just changes and flows, and
Yes.
so many different things.
Yes. And so many, I mean, you see what you want to see, and you have all these ideas, and then you have someone else come in and they have all these ideas. And I think that's what I love too about picture books, because you have not only how the author views the story, but you also have how the illustrator views the story, and they bring a whole nother perspective to it. And it's fantastic. It's like, well, I didn't think of it like that. This is great, So I love that collaborative process.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what did you enjoy most about writing this book?
I think it was also my most frustrating, but it was also the most enjoyable, was perfecting Howie's broken hee-haw, because I wanted it to be something that was fun to say, a little bit silly to say, but also that would be easy for people to say. I didn't want them to stumble over it. I wanted them to be able to say it. So that's the part of the book that changed so many times. But it was also really fun to practice saying all these silly hee-haws out loud to see which one was going to stick and work. So that was probably the most fun I had.
Oh, I'm sure. That sounds very fun. And then just what do you kind of hope people take from your book, both parents and kids?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned before, I think my biggest thing is for both parents and kids to know that God made them on purpose and for a purpose. I think it's so important, because sometimes we'll look at our lives and we'll think, why am I here? What good am I doing? Especially the chronic illness community. We can't do a lot sometimes, we feel like, I'm just taking up space. What good am I doing here? And yet God has a plan for us, and he made us, and there is something special that he has for us. And even if the only thing we ever accomplish is to bring him glory by praising him in the midst of our suffering, other people see that, and that's really powerful. And so I think that would be my one big takeaway that I want people to see, is just that God made them on purpose and for a purpose, and that he loves them so much.
Great. Do you have any closing remarks before we finish up?
I think that's it. I'm just so excited for people to see this book. And I do have a confession. I've got to see some of the inside part of the book. And like I was saying before, I love how the illustrator will bring their own take to the story. And I was having a heck of a time figuring out what illustrations went with what part of my text, because I thought, it wasn't how I imagined it, but it was so good. And so I think that's going to be really fun. I think that a good story makes a good book, and a good illustrator makes a good book, but a good book and a good illustrator makes an awesome book. And so I'm really excited for people to be able to see this and read it and have it be hopefully part of their collections for a long time.
All right. Thank you so much, Josie, and we look forward to your title coming out with us.
All